you for your time and welcome to another webinar from the MVP webinar series. Today we'll be discussing Microsoft 365. Why do you need it now more than ever? I will be presenting. My name is Ikram Masabini, and I also have Richard Young with me, who will be helping in the presentation and the demo we're going to do. So let's get started. This is what we're going to cover today. We're going to cover what is 365, Microsoft 365, and what advantages does it provide your business, why you should use it now more than ever, and what security advantages does it provide, because let's face it, cybersecurity is at the forefront of everybody's mind. So what security advantage does it provide? What licenses do you need? What questions should you ask? And then we have a special offer for you guys. So to get started, we'll go through what is Microsoft 365. So Microsoft 365 was known as Office 365. It's a line of subscription services offered by Microsoft, and it adds and includes the Microsoft Office products. It's not just the Office products. That's why they changed it. It has a lot more products and more tools and capabilities than Office used to have, so they changed the name. So Microsoft 365, it truly allows organizations to become more agile and mobile while still having secure access to the information and their data and the tools that their users need. We like to think of a network as a flexible network. With 365 and with your data in it, you could literally get to any of your data with any device. You don't have to be in the office. You could work the same way from anywhere that you go, especially with what we learned from the pandemic. 365 grew in such a big way because of its flexibility. But let's talk about 365 a little bit and what that is all about. So the 365 is part of the Microsoft ecosystem. So Microsoft ecosystem consists basically of two big parts, Azure, and Azure is our next webinar. So we'll be going and diving deeper in Azure next month. So please join us then. And Microsoft 365. I'd like to think of Microsoft 365 as the end user product, where Azure, you have the networking piece, the compute piece, in other words, Windows, if you want to have your Windows desktop in the cloud, a database or your storage, the actual compute, which is your CPU and RAM, all that lives in Azure. Azure also have the security layer, the backup layer, migration layer, AI layer, Internet of Things layer, all that lives in Azure. And the users use it, however, they don't use it and then don't interact with it like they do with Microsoft 365, because with 365 is the actual tools that they use on a day-to-day. And the way that it works is through something called the CDM, or a common data model. You're able to use the data in multiple different applications all at the same time. And we're going to do a demo and show you what we mean here. It truly changes the way that you function. In Microsoft 365 with Teams integration and CDM, common data model, you're able to open documents within Word, within Teams, within different applications. You're able to share and work on the same documents at the same time. It gives you a different way to function. It makes you faster. It makes you more collaborative. It makes you feel like a smaller group, even if you are a big group. It makes you feel smaller and more attached to each other. And it allows for sharing on any device at any time. So let's dive on the Microsoft 365 side. The Microsoft side 365 is where the end users, like I said, are working, and this is the tools they use. We could also link your local domain to that ecosystem, so then the whole thing becomes one network. So whether you're in the cloud or you have servers still internally, that doesn't matter. You'll feel like you're in the same environment. You'll be able to use the same Windows username and password to log in and have all the functionality that you need. The more we use it internally, we notice that we rely less and less on Microsoft Outlook and email, and we're migrating to different tools. It makes us a lot more efficient. So let's talk about the facts here. 75% of US businesses say they are more productive after they adopted 365. The majority of 365 customers are small or medium-sized businesses, less than 500 employees. And in Microsoft world, that's a small business. The industry with the highest rate of 365 usage or adoption is healthcare, financial, followed by manufacturing. These are the people that are getting a lot of benefits out of it. But we see benefits in all different types of companies, and we'll show you what I mean. Let's talk about some of those. So how can it help your business? So it's better tools for you to use. Changes and modernize the way that you work. More applications to help you create and capture data in different ways. Reduce email usage and organize it. Let me tell you what I mean. It starts with communication. It starts with a hub for everything, a place to go where you can communicate with your phone, with colleagues, have video conferencing, share files, share documents, and share ideas all in real time. It doesn't matter where you are. Because of COVID and having to go home, we've used this in a lot of different ways. We, for instance, we host a morning huddle and we invite people and everybody jumps in and everybody talks about their day and what they have to accomplish. And if they're stuck with anything, it makes, even though we're not in the same room together, it makes everybody feels a lot closer. Tell you what, when we sometimes have those meetings and we find that people, even though they're in the office and we're all in the same conference room, want to still go to their desk and open up Teams because they get more out of it. Plus, when you work from home channel, this is kind of like a channels that we created that allow this channel to share things that usually we would talk about when we walked around, right? But you're home, so you don't get to see anybody. So we created a channel for people to be able to interact and talk about their personal things, if they have something going on, if they want to invite people to play a game, if they want to talk about anything that's not work related. You can create channels and ways for people to communicate and bring everybody a little closer, making the team feels more connected, all on the same page and capable. We have a recognition channel, a channel where our employees can go talk about other employees for great things that they've done. You know, people need group recognition. People need to be recognized when they've done something great, and especially if they've done it for another employee that's their peer, so that when their peer is saying thank you so much for stepping and going above and beyond, and everybody sees that, and then everybody is able to jump in and add their comments, it makes a community that's very strong, and it makes everybody on the same page, pulling in the same direction, and a much stronger team. And while you do all these meetings and you use these new tools that we're going to talk about in more detail, you can record all your meetings. You can go back and re-listen to them. You could record them and use them as training so that other people can come in and see the meeting that you've had. It has a lot of capability, unlimited recording, of course, with web conferencing, among everything else. These are some of the tools that we're talking about. And let's not forget chat. We stepped away from chat. I remember a long time ago, I'm dating myself now, where AOL chat was the hottest thing on the internet. And we got away from chat, and people really don't use chat as much, but it's a very powerful tool. And if you implement Office 365 and Teams, you're able to chat and you avoid got a minute? Can I ask you a quick question? Somebody can send you a chat, and when you have the time to respond, you can. And that and if they're in a hurry, they can tell you that in the chat, and then you can decide if you can help them or not, or at least say, I can't help right now, or ask this, or try that. They could be doing something else, and you could still interrupt them without interrupting them. There are so many different ways that you could work together cohesively, even though you're not under the same roof. And if you all move back in together, you still use these tools to keep everybody on the same page. And most importantly, access it from anywhere on the go. So we're talking about 365 here. It works on any device at any time the same way. So your files are accessible from your mobile device, from your iPad, from your Android, from your PC. Doesn't matter what you're using. I'm using a Mac right now. The files are accessible. They work exactly the same way on any device that you may have. And because of its capabilities and its communication capabilities, it also can act as your phone system. And another feature that I love is that the autosave. You no longer have to save your documents. You could be in Word And just as long as everything is redirected back to SharePoint or OneDrive and it's redirected to to 365, you could turn on autosave, and every click that you do will automatically save the document in real time. You never have to worry about losing data or your machine locked up after you've worked on the documents for 10 hours and now you have to recreate it all. Every click gets saved automatically. 365 provides a lot of benefit when it comes to that. But what it also provides, besides communication, is collaboration. It's the idea of working together and sharing ideas across the board. These are the main tools that you see here, besides Word, Excel, and PowerPoint, and OneDrive, and Outlook, and what you see in SharePoint and Teams. When they all work together as one application, you're able to do a lot more. So let me tell you what I mean. You can invite people to collaborate by sharing a document. So I can go to a document, click on share, select, or I can be inside of a document and click on share, or I can be on my shared drive and click on share. And once I click on share, I can select which employee and I can give them certain rights: read only, read and change. And if I give them full rights because I want them to work with me, I can co-author and make edits together in real time. I can see, and if you see this, Omar is on this field, and Guadalupe is on the other one, and Wendy is on the third, and I'm able to see and make edits and changes and reviewing. And if I'm doing that, it's a collaborative approach because I can then chat within the file and ask people questions as I'm making changes in a file. Think about all working together within the file and then tracking your changes, and somebody else make a change and you track their changes. The difference here is, let's say you wanted somebody to help you with the file. What you would do back in the day, if you will, or now, if you don't have 365, is that you would send an email out or to asking them to jump on the file, or you would attach that file in the email and they would receive it. Now they have their own version of the file, and then you got your own version of the file. They work on theirs, you work on yours. Then they send you what they've done. You take what they've done and you try to incorporate it in yours, and you have multiple files now of the same thing, not one source of truth. With 365, you're able to share a file, but you're both working on the same file at the same time. There is no duplicate files. There is no two files, and you don't have to worry which file is true and which file is not. What you have to do is basically work on the file and see each other's changes and see where each other are on the same document. You only have then one document, one source of truth, and not a lot of changes. Now, if there's revisions, what have you, we can go back to that. We can also see different version history. So, Megan made a change on 5/18 in 2018. She made another change on 9/26. She made another change on October 4th. But guess what? If she made a mistake, we can go back and restore an older version. And it keeps tally of every time somebody logged in, I've seen that version and seen what they've done. And we're able to go back and restore if we needed to. We're able to see the changes they've made, to see what difference was between the files. It's a very strong tool across the board to help you to collaborate together and work together seamlessly, unlike anything that you do now. I was talking to one of our clients and they were like, well, what's the point? I mean, I use Outlook, I email my files, and you're just giving me the same data and I view it in a different format. There's a lot of truth to that, but I'm giving you a lot more than just the same data. I'm allowing you to use it with multiple other people all at the same time. I'm giving you a lot more capabilities than just having the applications you need and creating the one file that you have with your only source of truth is yours, and then you have to share it and then find out which one is the latest and updated version. And sometimes they're both updated. You've updated yours and they've updated theirs, and now you have to marry both of them together, and it may not work as well as you'd hoped. If you're all working on the same document at the same time, well, it does make it a lot easier. So Rich, are you available? Are you there?
I'm here.
All right, Rich. Let me introduce you. Rich Young is our Director of DevOps, and he is the one responsible for everything that is 365. and he knows a lot more about it on how to implement it because he's implemented all the ones that we have out in the field right now, thousands of users. So I'm going to have him talk about what you have to watch out for and what license is all about and what the focus is.
Thanks, Ikram. Yeah, so the focus that I wanted to talk about today, and Ikram talked a lot about how we use the collaboration aspects of 365 internally, is these 4 systems within the Microsoft 365 ecosystem. So Exchange for email, Microsoft Teams, SharePoint, and OneDrive. I want to talk a little bit about the 4 of those things and how those are really the main hub, combined with the Office desktop products when we talk about how we are communicating internally and how most of our clients start using the Microsoft 365 ecosystem right out of the box. So let's start talking about Exchange first. So for those of you that don't know what Exchange is, that's really Microsoft's flagship email platform, but it's a little bit more than email. So it's your email, it's your contacts, it's your calendars, it's tasks, and it's getting those things on multiple devices with the same information. So when you're coming from legacy systems that use a technology called POP3 or IMAP, the only thing that you have there is your email. You don't have contacts that are going to be the same on your phone as they are on your desktop, as they are, on your laptop. Exchange has all of those things, and they're all synchronized across all of your devices in one platform. The difference with Exchange in Microsoft 365 now is that you've got different services that sit in the background that you're able to take advantage of. You can send encrypted emails. You have a focused inbox to start to help you filter out the emails that are most important to you, and put things like newsletters and other items like that to the side, so you can focus on just your communications internally with the people that you interact with the most. It's easier to report phishing and junk emails automatically right to the server, so that the system learns what's junk, what's phishing, and can get better over time for everybody. Exchange in 365 now, though, allows multiple systems like Teams, like SharePoint, like OneDrive to access calendar data, to access your email. So now where you would have a separate calendar within Teams compared to your calendar within your Exchange environment, now those two things are synchronized. They're essentially one calendar. So you've got one place for all of your events. So that's Exchange. That's your email. That's what people mostly use as their main hub of communication. So when you do move to the 365 platform, you'll find that slowly over time, your main hub for communication actually becomes Microsoft Teams. So Ikram got into it a little bit with how channels are organized, how we use that as a chat platform. We were using it internally as Ikram was starting his webinar, as I was getting messages from employees at MVP commenting on the contrasting Microsoft Teams and AOL Instant Messenger. That was a question that was sent to me over Teams. So the interaction never stops when you're in there, and it's very handy. It's very easy to use. But outside of chat, it's video conferencing, so it's similar to Zoom, as well as it allows you to now create a security structure. So when you're talking about creating different groups of people within your organization, Teams actually allows you to build that out and to organize your organization into essentially security groups of people that will have reason to communicate with each other, but they'll also need access to certain files that other people wouldn't need access to. So you're inherently building out a security infrastructure within your organization just by creating the teams and groups of users that want to interact with each other just organically. And I mentioned the fact that now you'll be able to integrate your calendar with Microsoft Teams. So when you're setting video conferencing meetings with people outside of your organization or inside your organization, that calendar is going to be synchronized with your Exchange calendar. The next thing on here is SharePoint. So many of you are probably familiar with SharePoint as a website, as a internal website, and it's been that way since 2001. So Microsoft brought this product out as it was meant to be an internal facing website, but along the lines they started to build out what Ikram talked about with that common data model. So integrating document sharing within SharePoint itself was something that came along in the early 2000s, and it's really something that has blossomed into the core of SharePoint as it exists today. So when you're sharing files or storing your files within the Microsoft 365 infrastructure, you're storing those files within SharePoint. So SharePoint allowed people to check documents in and be aware of who had access to a file, who was working on a file, when those files were changed, all that, the versioning stuff that Ikram talked about. That started to develop in the early 2000s, and it's really built up into what it is today. And it's really the core of the document storage engine that Microsoft uses today. It's integrated into Teams. It's integrated, well, we'll talk about what OneDrive is. It's integrated into Exchange. It's really your one source for where all of your data is going to reside within the 365 environment. So OneDrive itself. OneDrive, where most people would consider it the place where you're storing your documents, it's really just a user interface that's built on top of SharePoint. So when you create a Microsoft team in the Microsoft 365 environment, what actually happens is a SharePoint site is built in the back end automatically, and it's associated with that team. So you can store files there. The security of that is built in so that only members of that team have access to those files within that particular SharePoint site. The same thing happens when a user is created that has a Microsoft Exchange account. So if I were to be created as a user in Microsoft 365, a SharePoint site specific for myself would be created. Only I have access to it. And then when I connect to OneDrive, now I'm going to have access to be able to upload my files and synchronize my files with my SharePoint site via OneDrive. So we'll get into a demo a little bit later on, which shows us using OneDrive. We're gonna see files in SharePoint. We're gonna see files in Teams, and we'll just go through a sample interaction with Ikram and myself as an example of how we'll interact on a daily basis with those four systems. So, licensing itself. Now that we understand what the four main focus points are for licensing, you need to decide how you're going to license your Microsoft 365 environment. So there is just an absolute mountain of possible licenses that you can have with Microsoft 365, but it really boils down to organizing who your users are with essentially four main questions. So the first question is this person a service, or is this person an actual physical person? As an example of a service would be, I have an info mailbox that I need to have access to Exchange. It needs to receive email in, but we never actually email out of it. So that's the first question. Does the service actually need to receive email? In that example of an info@mvpworks.com, it does. Then you've got a next level of a service, and for those of you that are MVP clients, you receive emails from support@mvpworks.com probably throughout the day as we're working on tickets. So that's an example of a service that not only needs to receive email in, because that's where you email when you want to create a new service request with us, but when we have a technician update that ticket, you are also going to receive an email from support@mvpworks.com. So in this case, that service needs to send and receive email, but it doesn't need to do all of the other things like a person would need to do with a Microsoft 365 product. It doesn't need to have access to Teams. It doesn't need to share documents back and forth. All it really needs is an Exchange mailbox. So you can easily separate services versus people. But now when you're talking about people, you need to understand, or you need to decide what those people in your organization need to do. So ideally, we'd like everybody in the organization to be able to collaborate the same way that we're going to demo collaborating, where you've got Exchange, you use Teams on a daily basis to interact with each other, you've got documents to store. But that's not always the case. You might have frontline workers where it's just somebody working out in a warehouse. They never interact with anybody. They don't have files to view. They come in, they do their job. They don't need an email. So you want to ask, does this person actually require this sort of interaction? As you build out your 365 infrastructure, there will probably be things that they will need to access. But for now, does this person even need email? And then the next question is, does this person need the desktop version of Office? That is really a big differentiator in the basic product SKUs that are available for 365. Is the desktop product itself can replace the standard version of Microsoft Office that most of us have been used to since the the mid 90s, where I buy a box copy of Office and I install it on my machine. And if I need to install Office on another machine, I buy another box copy of Office and I install it on a second machine. The Microsoft 365 subscription model is a little bit different, where your installs of that desktop product are tied to an individual person. So it now becomes about business need for that individual in your organization. Does this person actually need to open Word and Excel and PowerPoint on their machine, or do they just need access to email and they can get that through a browser? So once you've answered those questions about the people in your office and the core between desktop products and just getting email, there's additional services that 365 can offer to you that you might want to implement. Each of those different services potentially comes with a cost, and it potentially comes with a different sort of license that you would need to order for those people. On a per user basis, and all of these prices on here are per month. So when we're talking about licensing through MVP, there's no special MVP license pricing. What you're seeing here is the standard Microsoft pricing. So if you were to buy licenses from Microsoft or from MVP, you're paying the same price. The only difference is the price that we offer you on a monthly basis is the same price that you would get with Microsoft on a monthly basis if you committed to a year of that product. So you can't buy a product for an entire year, say. So if I wanted spam and virus filtering, the Microsoft Defender Plan 1 license, I can't buy that for a full year. I can commit to Microsoft to buy it for a year, but I'm still going to be paying $2 a month. If you're only committing to Microsoft directly on a month-to-month basis, those prices are a little bit higher. But what we do at MVP is you're committing to us for a month-to-month basis, and you're still getting that annual commitment price level from us. So these are just some of the most common things that we see as additional services. We're going to be talking about Azure and our security focus with the Microsoft 365 platform next month. So we'll get into what all of these different things mean and why you would need them. A lot of them are based on the industry that you're in. So whether that's medical or financial, a lot of these things are things that you need to have. One thing that we think everybody needs to have when we are implementing 365 is the first item there, the spam, virus, malware, and phishing policies. You don't get those right out of the box with 365. You do have to pay per user $2 per month for those to be implemented within your tenant. And that is something that we do, and we make sure that is in place for you guys every single time that we onboard somebody. Once we go on from there, email encryption. If you do have a need to send encrypted emails out, the product is called Azure Information Protection. It's $2 per user per month. And that's for if I'm in Outlook and I know I want to send a secure email to somebody, I've got a button that will let me encrypt that email. So it's a manual process, but it allows you to send those encrypted messages out. The one underneath that is a little bit, it's the next level of encryption, so to speak. It's policy-based encryption. So these are now rules where Microsoft 365 can be aware of the data that's being passed back and forth. So it can read the email that you're sending out and look for things like credit card numbers and SSN numbers and passport numbers, and make a decision to automatically encrypt those emails for you to protect yourself and your organization from that information leaving your organization that you're responsible for. Microsoft also, underneath their data loss prevention license, includes things like litigation hold. So if you're in financial or if you're in law, you might have a need or a requirement to be able to put a mailbox on litigation hold. All of those things are bundled into a data loss prevention license for $3 a month for each user. Email archiving. So archiving in the past was done by doing an export on your local machine and getting it. It's a process of getting email out of your mailbox to kind of clean up space and essentially store it in a separate file. So the previous version of doing that is you do that, you export that data, and now your mailbox is a little bit cleaner. Maybe you were getting close to 50 gigabytes and you were starting to notice that things were slowing down and you needed to clear up some space. So that would be done by manually doing that, and now that data only exists on your desktop in that one file. So you got to make sure that that's backed up somewhere. What 365 allows you to do is to have an online archive, and it allows you to create policies to make sure that data is automatically moved there. So it's going to do the same thing. It's going to clean up your inbox. It's going to make sure that you've got more space available, but it can do that on a automatic basis. We usually set it for, I think by default when we're going through our hardening process, is we set it for 2 years to automatically move to this email archive for you to clean up your mailbox if that's something that you've selected. So you have access to that online archive from anywhere, and that that archive is now available on your phone, it's available on your desktop, it's available on your laptop, instead of just sitting on the device that you initially did that export to. Conditional access. This is a security feature that can look at the properties of where you're trying to log into, where you're trying to access data from. Typically when we implement something like this, we'll make sure that we are only allowing you access from places in North America, United States, Canada, so that when you get requests to access your mailbox from somewhere like China or Russia or anywhere else overseas, that access is blocked, whether or not they have the correct username or password. You can't access it. Mobile device management. So this is allowing an organization to apply security policies to machines that connect to their network and to their data. So Ikram had talked a little bit about what we'll talk about next month with Azure, of combining your network and synchronizing your internal network with Azure Active Directory. Mobile device management through Intune with Azure allows those devices to enroll within Azure Active Directory, and you can apply security policies to them to allow you to do things like wipe a mobile phone if it was lost, or do the same thing for a laptop. And then the last thing on there is getting a call-in number for Teams. So Microsoft calls this audio conferencing. It's $4 a month. This is, if you're going to create a Teams meeting, this allows you to have a dial-in number so that outside people can join that Teams meeting just by dialing into a number rather than calling in or connecting to it with video in the normal fashion that you would see that. So that was a very long run through of what those additional policies can be. We'll get into them a little bit more next month in the Azure webinar. But let's get back to what those base licenses are. So you've already asked the question of, are these services, are these people, what do these people need to do? What are those additional things that we might need to do? So when we're talking about those services, the ones that only receive email, those are real easy. There's a function within Microsoft 365 that is called a shared mailbox, that if that mailbox is just receiving email, you can create a shared mailbox, give different people access to it, and you don't even need a license for it. Once that mailbox needs to actually send email, you can add a Exchange Online Plan 1 license, and that creates a Exchange account that is able to send email for just that service. And that's just $4 a month. Now, when we talk about people, those basic users that they need email and they're happy to access it just through a web browser, they don't need those Office desktop products. There is a product called Business Basic, and it is $5 a month, and that allows that user to have an Exchange mailbox. It allows them to use Teams. It allows them access to SharePoint. It allows them access to OneDrive. So the four basic building blocks of collaboration that we talked about, all bundled into that $5 Business Basic package. And the next one up from that is that user that does need those Office desktop products. So, you got the same four things: the Exchange, the Teams, the SharePoint, the OneDrive, but now I also need to use Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and all those things. That price now jumps up to $12. So with both of those items, when MVP implements it, we want to make sure that we're adding that Microsoft Defender Plan 1. So anybody that's using email, we make sure that you've got that spam protection, those phishing policies in place. So when you're planning out what your license cost should be, you should also at a base be planning for an additional $2 for both of these Business Basic and Business Standard licenses. The next step up from that, though, is the Business Premium license. So it's an additional $8 compared to the Business Standard license. But what it does is you're combining a bunch of those additional services now. So when you're looking at, I think I probably had 6 or 8 different services on that slide before. As you start to decide that, yeah, I need to do email encryption. Yeah, I want that conditional access. Yes, I want to implement Intune so that I can enroll devices and have control over the devices that are accessing my data. Well, now you're adding $2 here, $6 there, $3 here. And when you're adding that on top of that Business Standard license, that $12, you quickly get up and above the $20 threshold that Business Premium offers you. So all of the services other than the Teams audio that I had on the previous slide, they're all bundled into Business Premium. So what it does is it allows you to have access to all those services all in one standard license for that user. And I think that's really it as far as the licensing information. There are different variations of the licensing. Ikram, if you wanted to go back. So what we're talking about here with the Business Basic and the Business Standard, this is just for a standard organization. So that this pricing is for standard organizations. Not for profit has a different pricing point. They're still all of the same licenses, they just cost less. And these licenses themselves are limited to 300 users. So once you get above and beyond 300 of each of these types of licenses, you're going to have to upgrade to what's called enterprise level licenses. They're not named the same. They've got an E in front of them, and they do cost a little bit more. But it's still this. You're still answering the same questions. Are these services? Are these people? What do they need to do? Okay, you can go to the next one. So then training. Once you get onboarded with 365, there is a lot to learn. So there's Microsoft makes it real simple. For those of you that actually are on 365 right now and want to learn a little bit more about the products, I encourage you to write down this URL that's on the left-hand side there. And you can click into any of the applications that are in there, whether it's Outlook or you want to learn more about OneNote. Microsoft does a good job with some step throughs as well as some videos on how to use each of these products. I'll just give you a couple seconds here to write down that URL in case that's something that you're interested in. And I think that brings us to our demo, right, Ikram?
That's right. So thanks, Rich. That was very helpful. Lots of good information and questions to ask. So let's show everybody what the demo is all about or what we're going to do here. So bear with me for 1 second. Okay, let me reshare the screen. Okay, you guys can see my screen. Rich, can you see it?
Yep, I can see it.
Okay, so I logged into Teams, and the reason why I logged into Teams is because of that CMD, that the data being available in every other application. I'm going to show you what I mean. So in Teams, when you first log in, you see chat, and chat is just basically chat that you could have among other people. So if I say hello to Rich and I send it to him, he receives it. I can see when it got delivered. If there is, I can see that he's seen it because now there's an eyeball, and I can see that he's typing and responding to me right away, and he sees me, and I'm going to give him a big thumbs up here. I can do that, or I can actually send Rich an announcement, or send him a file, or send him a GIF or a picture, or whatever it may be. I'll send him a crab. And he's watching a great webinar, and I agree. It's so far so much great information. I hope you guys find it the same. So now communication can happen. Not only can communication happen, but I can click on the camera icon or the phone icon, and all of a sudden I'm talking to Rich. Now this is one-to-one. However, if you have a team of people, we'll go to teams. Now these are teams that we've done here, that we've put here together. One is a recognition team, for instance. Way to go, Rich. Thank you for your help today. And you're a star. And I put a little thing for Rich to see. Rich can respond to this, or he cannot, or many other people that have rights to that team can now be incorporated. I can manage my team from here. I can add additional users. I can remove users. I can make them part of the managers of the team, or I can just make them a user of the team. I can add additional channels. So if I go to the Office 365 adoptions, I put additional channels in here. What if we had a channel just for a calendar of everything that we're doing for Office 365? Think of it as a team, as being a group of people working on, it could be one project, it could be something that it could be a department, and that's where all the people from the department go to find information. I can also click on files and see a file within that team. Let me go to the Office 365 adoption team. I'm gonna go to general. I'm gonna click on file, and I'm able to see a file here that we could work on. So let's say I'm coming in to work on this file, and I wanna do some changes. So I can click on the file, and it will, even though now I'm in Word, however I'm in Teams, that CMD that we talked about, that's where it's all about. It makes all the applications kind of work together. I don't have to download the file, save a file, do other things. Now, I don't have all the features of what Word is, but I do have a way to edit it. And I can also decide that if I'm going to edit it, I can make a copy and edit it, open it in a desktop application. Even if I open it in a desktop application, it will still work the same way. I can also see that Rich jumped on that file as well, and this is where his cursor is. So my cursor is here next to the 2, and Rich's cursor is moving along now, if you could see it. And we don't need to, yeah, okay, and I can also respond, if I can type it right. So let's remove the exclamation points because he is right. Maybe we do not ETL. So now I am in a document working on something specific. Rich is on the same document working with me, and then we can make changes and make it live as we go on. And we can also make comments and have a conversation. So let's say as Rich is going through it, realizes, hey, this no longer should be accounts and passwords. It should just be passwords or mail setting. I can go in and say, but I'm not sure if that's the case. I can add a comment here directly and say, should this be passwords only? So, and then I can tag Rich because I can also tag anybody else that has rights to that team. And I sent it to him. He can then respond and I can have a conversation and we can make changes as we are going on, as we continue to work. Now, I've done these changes. I made some changes. Rich, obviously, you could see where his browser, where he's at, where his cursor is at. We're working together on the document. We end up finding what we wanted to change, make it as good as we want to. He responded with, "You're right. Apple changed it in their latest update, last update. So now we have to change that in that document, and we could work together." And he is changing it in real time. And I can start a conversation not only with Rich, but now with anybody part of that team, and we could all collaborate on that same document together. I can send the link out and what have you. And I could be done with this. So I'm going to close this document. Thank you, Rich. And if I come back here, here's that document. I didn't have to click save. It automatically saved because it's all part of 365. And then if I come back later and say, hey, wait a minute, what changes did we make? What happened? I can go to that document and I can open it in SharePoint, which will then take me to SharePoint, logs me in, shows me where the document is in that SharePoint, the SharePoint site that automatically got created just because we created that team. And I can see my document. I can come to the document. I can download it if I needed to. I can also see the version history of that document. And I can see every time somebody logged into that document and every time they made a save or a change or what it was. This is a new document, obviously, from today. And I can go in and see all the little changes and the time that it happened. And if I want to go back in time, I can restore that older version. Now think about the power of this. You no longer have multiple files that have different people's ideas of what should be in the files. You no longer are wasting time getting everybody together and working, and everybody working separately on their own, and then you take everybody's changes and try to make one master file out of it. You could actually work in real time all together. And if somebody make a change you don't like, you can go and restore the version right before it. It's very powerful. It allows you to be very nimble, and it allows for your company to feel smaller, closer, and it truly uses CMD to the utmost. And I see now that recognition has got bolded. That means somebody wrote something in there that I haven't read yet, and I'm going to give them a thumbs up for doing it. That's just obviously calendar is your calendar. It's the same as Outlook calendar. It's the same as your team's calendar. Same as calendars that exist in Office 365 altogether. Same as your mobile device calendar. You can make calls from here, and then you could attach a variety of different applications that give you even more power. If I click on more apps here, the amount of applications available to make teams and your ecosystem, because you're building a different way to function, is huge, and it goes on and on what it is. Some of my favorite applications are, besides obviously the one that Microsoft releases, are Praise. Praise, show gratitude for peers who went above and beyond at work. Forms, you can create your own forms. Power BI is a kind of a dashboard automation system that you could build up. You could have weather, and I can go on and on, from project management applications to Poly's a good one. With you could have get instant feedback with polls, and you could build a poll within a specific team, and I can ask a question and I can see who answered. The capability you get from having tools that you're not used to, instead of just using Outlook and sending everything through Outlook. A lot of people we find manage their entire day through Outlook. This is to get that same data accessible by multiple different applications to make you faster and better and make your team a lot better. Rich, you want to add anything else? This is basically it.
No, I like your excitement in here of all of the options that you have within teams to collaborate. I think a really good example of how you can use this infrastructure was just the way that you and I built out the slide deck for today's presentation. You know, throughout the week, you had your own slides that you were working on. I had my own slides. We had one document, and we were both just working in our sections of it, and our updates were, you know, in real time given to the other person. It's such a change over the way that things used to be, and it was so much easier. It made it easy for me to work on the document when I was at home. You saw some of the times of when Ikram had made changes to the iPhone configuration document at 6 in the morning. We didn't have to physically be there at the same time at the same place to work on something. It was really a great example of what we were actually demoing. So it was ironic.
Well, that's how it works. I agree. So I want everybody to start thinking, well, man, maybe we could do things a little bit better and a little easier. And you can. 365 is there for a reason. So what's next? What should you do next? Now that we give you all this info, the next webinar is going to be very strong. So please join us, because it will show you quite a bit of power when it comes to Azure, the back end of Microsoft 365, and how things actually happen, and what else you could do when you have a full integrated Azure environment.
Yeah,
But
I
we
think
have
we're
an
going to
offer
talk
for
a
you.
lot about the security side of things, and that's really our focus when it comes to 365. It's not just giving you guys the platform; it's making sure that that security is top of mind, and you can do that with Azure, and we'll see next month, right?
It's a very good point, because we spend a lot of time understanding the security side of 365. It's not because it's not in our control, and Microsoft doesn't give it to you locked down. We decide how locked down we want to make it. You need to have a partner that truly understands that, and that's why we're here. You have to be a partner, you have to be certified, and you have to know what you're doing to be able to deliver a very strong solution. I got a question that just came up: is 365 HIPAA compliant? Yes, it is. Obviously, you have to add some of those services, but it is HIPAA compliant. As a matter of fact, most of the healthcare organizations in this area use 365, one or other version of it. So what we're offering for you guys, because we're wrapping up now, got 5 minutes left, and got a couple more questions that came in. So what we're offering is a 365 preparedness assessment. We would come in and see what type of license you would need, see how you're using your data now and how you're sharing it, see how you communicate within your company, look at your present state and do a use analysis of it, and then create a future state roadmap so that we could show you how we can convert where you are to where you need to be. And the most important piece, I'll give you a copy of my book, Computer Should Just Work. This is offer is for, who's it for? Is for everybody that needs a change, that can see the value of having better collaboration and better communication in their tools. And it's free for the seminar attendees. Usually we would do that analysis. It costs about $650. This analysis will be free because you guys joined us today, and we'll go through it with you, deciding what it would take to get you to 365. If you're interested, here's our number. Please either email myself or Rich or Ikram Jr. His email is right in front of you, and you can call us at any time, and we'll be more than glad to help. One other question: can you suggest ways for organizing OneDrive?
I'll
Absolutely.
take
So
that.
go
I'll
ahead,
take
Rich.
that. Yeah,
Okay.
and you really start with teams. You start thinking about who needs access to the data that I'm looking to organize. So, whether that's accounting data or whether that's development data, you need to think about who those users are, and you would start by creating a team for those users, which will create a SharePoint site where you can store those documents and get access to them with the OneDrive application. And now all of not only is your data organized and given to the individuals that you need to have access to it, the security is there as well.
That's right. I hope that answered your question, Alan. Um, and oh, I thought it was another question coming in, but they removed it. But now look at the time. We only have 2 minutes left. If you guys have any other questions, please let us know. Please join us next month. I guess there will be a continuation of this, but diving deeper into the security, into Azure, and what else is available through the 365 and Microsoft ecosystem. It's important to understand the whole thing that Microsoft's doing. And we've been using it for the last few years. It saved us and a lot of our clients when it comes to the pandemic and working remotely. We like to look at a network as a very flexible network. In other words, what happens if we all have to go home again? Can you just grab your laptop and work the same way from your house as you do from your office, and everything remains the same? Makes us more flexible, more nimble, and more capable to deliver the solutions that everybody, that all your companies deliver, but we're giving you the tools to do it better and more efficiently. I hope you guys found this beneficial. Rich, thanks, man. You did great. Appreciate you.
No problem.
Looking forward to the next webinar. And if you guys have any other questions, let us know. This is recorded, so it will also be posted online. And if you want a copy of our deck, we'll be sending that to you guys. And looking forward to seeing you next month. Have a great day, everybody.